The city was Jerusalem. The time was long ago. The people called him Jesus. His crime was the love he showed, and I'm the one to blame. I caused all the pain. He gave himself the day he wore my crown. He brought me love that only he could give. I brought him cause to cry. And though he taught me how to live, I taught him how to cry. And I'm the one to blame. I caused all his pain. He gave himself the day he wore my crown. He could have called his Holy Father and said, "Take me away, please take me away." He could have said, "I'm not guilty, and I'm not gonna stay. No, I'm not gonna pay." But he walked right through the gate, and then on up the hill. And as he felt beneath the weight, he cried, "Father, not my will, but I'm the one to blame. I caused all his pain. He gave himself the day he wore my crown." I'm the one to blame. I caused all his pain. He gave himself the day he wore my crown.
Well, welcome to Spring Creek Church of the Brethren for our community Lenten service. I'm Pastor Adam Alm, and I just want to welcome you to Spring Creek. I'm going to be joined shortly by my wife, Katie. I've enjoyed these community Lenten services over the last few years. I love getting together with other followers of Jesus in the Hershey area. I also love seeing and experiencing the different types of liturgy and worship that is a part of each of our congregations. I also enjoy the different architecture of our buildings. Some have beautifully ornate sanctuaries that call our attention to the majesty of King Jesus. And we sit surrounded by stained glass windows that remind us of the story of Jesus. Others opt for simpler spaces of worship that speak to the servant Jesus, who leaves everything to come and be with us. I also am growing to appreciate the traditions of the meals that follow the Lenten services, and as we gather together and share food and share fellowship, getting to know one another as followers of Jesus in the Hershey area. And I realize that our Lenten services have been very different this year. But I've also been glad for the sneak peeks into each of the congregations and get to fellowship in some way with brothers and sisters around the Hershey area. Well, our Lenten service tradition at Spring Creek, typically we host the community service on Holy Week. And normally, or BC, before COVID, our congregation would celebrate something that we call Love Feast on Palm Sunday evening. It's a reflection of the early church's agape meal in which Christians came together and they shared food and they shared fellowship and they shared community. And they remembered together the sacrifice of Jesus in communion. Well, as a part of that meal at Spring Creek, we've had a long tradition of a beef soup. It's not too much to look at. It's not very complicated in what goes into the soup. It's beef broth and beef and rice and some bread and hours of stirring. Even for our young people, it is one of the special memories of our Love Feast service. And this is the soup that we have often served to the community on the Wednesday of Holy Week. Well, I also wanted to share with you this morning some of the other traditions that are a part of that service beyond just a strange soup. We also have a tradition of washing one another's feet. When we read John 13, we have a desire to follow the example of Jesus as we read it there in John's Gospel. This scene continues to leave me in awe. Jesus knows that his time has come. He's seen how the crowd has celebrated him on Sunday in the triumphal entry, and he knows that soon they will be condemning him on Friday. And yet Jesus gathers his disciples for one last meal together. In John's story, Jesus actually dies as the Passover lamb. And as Jesus and his followers gather together, even his closest disciples are a fickle bunch. Jesus knows that Judas is going to betray him. He knows that Peter is soon going to be denying him. He knows that the other disciples are soon going to be running and hiding. He knows all of this. And yet, Jesus takes on the position of a household servant. And he wraps a towel around his waist and he washes his disciples' feet. Now, when we do this at Spring Creek, most of us have had a shower. We typically wear shoes and socks, and so our feet aren't that dirty. Maybe there's a little sock lint in the water, but really that's about it. But in Jesus' day, they had sandaled feet. They walked through dusty streets with stuff splashing on their feet all throughout the day. And so it was the job of one of the household servants or slaves to wash the feet of their guests. And here we have Jesus, the Christ, King of the universe, God of God, only begotten of the Father, true God from true God, who stoops, who bends down on his knees to take up the menial task like washing feet. The betrayer, the denier, the scared, the afraid, the broken are all there, all washed by the rabbi. This is a microcosm, just a small picture of the gospel story. Because of the love of God, because Jesus desires to show us the heart of God, he leaves everything to come and to be with us. Jesus comes willingly, giving up all things, being humbled as a servant, become obedient to death, even death on the cross. He comes to give sacrificially of himself for the good of others. Now, it's washing feet. Soon, it will be dying on the cross. As Jesus washes their feet, he comes to Peter. And Peter is a little put off. And he says to Jesus, "You're not going to wash my feet. I can't have you, my teacher, my Lord, washing my feet." But Jesus says, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." Of course, in typical Peter fashion, then Peter wants all in. Peter's kind of all or nothing. And he wants nothing to begin with, but now he turns and he's all in. He wants the full baptism. As Jesus finishes, he looks at his disciples and he asks them, "Do you know what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them." Several years ago, a friend of mine knew I was part of a tradition that took these words and put them into practice quite literally. And he said to me, "I think Jesus is talking about more than just washing feet. I think he's talking about sacrificially serving others." And I think so too. And in a world that typically seeks to serve only one's individual desires, giving sacrificially for the good of others is still pretty strange. It's still pretty peculiar. Maybe as peculiar as folks gathering to wash feet, or eating a strange soup, or gathering to commune with God and the body of Christ in broken body and poured out blood. I'm not actually asking or expecting all followers of Jesus to gather and literally wash feet. That's our thing. It doesn't have to be your thing. But I do think what Christ calls us to is acts of sacrificial service for the good of others and the good of the world around us. We live in a broken world. And over the last year, we've seen that brokenness on full display in sickness and disease, in racial hostility and political strife. And so the church is called to the example of Jesus, to give of ourselves, to show the love of Christ to the glory of God and our neighbor's good. So I wonder, what ways could you find right now to metaphorically wash the feet of another? The funds donated as part of our community Lenten services go to support some pretty awesome organizations. And so maybe giving sacrificially is a way to wash some feet. Or contact any of our local service organizations, Loving, Cocoa Packs, the Food Bank, Unite Youth, and there's lots of other organizations that would love to find a way to for you to wash the feet of neighbors in our community. Or else go out your front door and visit a neighbor. Call and check on a friend. After a year of shutdowns and isolation, one way to wash some feet could just be sharing fellowship with another person in a socially distant, appropriate way, or simply a good, long phone conversation, to touch base, to see how they're doing, to check in with one another. And I believe the church is called to be a peculiar bunch of people who share the love of Jesus in ways that sometimes can seem pretty strange. May all of us learn to go and to serve others, to wash the feet of one another. May it be so.